And we're back. The shroud of mystery over Hermit Yoda has been lifted. I'm very excited to get into him. I've been playing this game since launch, and I think the first review I ever left for the game was screaming, "Where's Yoda?" because Grandmaster Yoda wasn't even in the game. So I'm very excited. I think this is the Jedi that we have all been waiting for, so let's just get right into it.
Take it to him, I will.
And let's get right into it with his basic. Now, the first thing to notice about his basic is it does not do any damage. This is the first toon we have that doesn't do any damage. Something else to notice is that he's giving turn meter to other Jedi allies, so he's not giving turn meter to himself. This means that he's giving turn meter to other Jedi like Grandmaster Yoda, who's already very fast and is going to become even more annoying. However, the health and the protection is for all allies. Something else to notice is that AoE damage or mass damage is going to be a very bad idea against teams with Hermit Yoda because the damage that you're doing is just going to be replaced immediately. He's just going to heal everyone back up. So the way to kill a toon on his team is to really focus on them. So what we've heard about territory battles will be fighting enemies with countering and with assists, and this is how they're going to be focusing on one toon to kill them.
Too old to begin the training.
His first special master's training will send him into stealth. It's going to send him into hiding. Then he will cleanse an ally, give them this new master's training buff, and then he will call them to assist. So he's not cleansing himself. He's only cleansing the ally. He's calling them to attack. So this is how he's generating or creating damage since he himself cannot do damage. This buff is another unpreventable, undispellable buff like we've been seeing, but this one is permanent. So you will have multiple toons with the buff on at the same time. I think the way it's worded, it says until the end of the encounter. So I would think if a toon has the buff and is defeated, if you revive them, I think they will still have it, but I'm not quite sure. If you're fighting this, I think one of the only ways to manage a toon with this buff is going to be Fracture, because what's the best way to approach an undispellable buff? We'll do an undispellable debuff. And something to note is the cooldown is 3, so I think this will be what he uses on his first turn, so it'll take him 10 turns to put this on every single toon. Let's get a little bit more into Masters training this new buff, and in particular I want to get into this additional offense, and the reason for that is I think that the problem behind the Jedi, the problem that they've been having is they don't have a heavy damage hitter, and I've actually been really wanting a Mace Windu rework where he would get kind of a Ray treatment, but for the Jedi, where he's just doing insane damage, especially because he's such a skilled lightsaber wielder. But I want to see what kind of impact on the damage that this is going to have. We've had R2, we've had Qui-Gon, we've had Ezra. How does this compare? So let's break down some numbers. So let me just pick a Jedi. Let's do Jedi Knight Anakin. And going off swgoh.gg, his base physical damage is 2300. That's a pretty average. If you have something like R2 Zeta number crunch in there, which is a very good Zeta, you get an extra about 300. Yoda is giving you 50% offense, so you're getting 1100 extra offense from Yoda. If you also have that on a Zeta Qui-Gon lead, you're getting offense equal to 3 times your speed, so around 400. So you can kind of feel the difference on these teams behind the number crunch and behind the Zeta Qui-Gon. You can kind of feel that little extra offense, and look at how those numbers compare with what you're getting from Hermit Yoda. That is a huge jump, and if you put all of these together, you get around 4,000 physical damage. That's almost twice the physical damage, and that's on par with Palpatine, who has the highest base physical damage or base special damage. He's the hardest hitting toon in the game. So it is a huge jump, and if you take into account his unique or someone like Ezra who has stacking offense, this is just like, good lord. So I think this is really the missing component to the Jedi in this game. I am so excited for this.
The Jedi's strength flows from the Force.
Second special will equalize health and then give everyone another little health boost. It does have a Zeta. His special has a Zeta and one of his uniques has a Zeta. The Zeta reduces the cooldown, it adds protection into the mix, and it gives even more foresight to the Jedi who have a lot of other chances for foresight. So this kind of feels like if you took Barris and then added in the Zeta Grandmaster Yoda component into it. Some ideas when we have these teams that have a ton of foresight everywhere. My favorite toon for removing mass foresight is Kylo because his AoE refreshes, and it's a very nice AoE to throw away because you're not really going to be using it anyway. Other toons that are nice for mass foresight are R2D2, Thrawn's Fracture, Nihilus's Annihilate. They just can't be avoided. Countering from toons like Kenobi and Luke are excellent for fighting foresight since they pick it away as they're countering. Something else that I find kind of picking away at my brain a little bit is this idea of Vader because he can't be avoided and does this ability block on Jedi. And if he's Zetaed, his lead applies these dots, these damage over times that can't go away, that will eat away at the Jedi. So I'm thinking of these territory battles when they're on Hoth, and I'm imagining Vader storming the base at the very end, and I'm just like really, really hoping that we get this in the game because I think throwing Hermit Yoda at this with a Zader will be a really interesting contrast. And just something to note, this might seem like a whatever thing, but it is protection recovery. It's not protection up, so it's not like Ahsoka where she can give protection to someone who doesn't have it. They need to have protection in the first place. And the reason that I'm mentioning this is because territory battles will use a bunch of our toons that we have sitting on kind of in the back burner, and so they might not have protection in the first place.
Into exile. I must go. Failed, I have.
Getting into his uniques, Yoda will start the battle stealthed, and while he is stealth, he cannot take damage. He can take debuffs, but he cannot take damage, so he is going to be very difficult to kill. If you're thinking about keeping him, how to keep him stealthed, you wouldn't really want to use a Teebo lead because Teebo isn't very useful anymore. Even on turn meter reduction teams, Jin and Luke are much better options. R2D2 is definitely going to be your best bet. And if you're thinking of other toons besides R2D2, just a reminder that Wicket's stealth only works on Ewoks, so really R2D2 is your best bet. We also get this neat new mechanic about Yoda escaping from the from battle. So what happens is if all of the other allies die, then Yoda will peace out, see ya, and leave the battle. And what I think will happen with this, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a confirmation on this, but I think what will happen is the team that had Yoda, when Yoda escapes, that team will lose. And the reason I think this is because when you see escape happening in the tank raid, the toon leaves and escapes, but you still see the defeat screen, so your team still technically lost according to the game. So when we're thinking about this in Arena, even though Yoda might be kind of increasing the survivability of your team, maybe helping them become a timeout team, in the end, you only have to kill 4 toons. So is he making it hard enough to kill those other 4 toons? We'll have to see, but you still only have to kill 4 toons, so I don't know that this will end up being a good thing in Arena, but in things like raids and territory battles, this will be excellent because it's kind of like that Xylo in the P1 of the tank where he's automatically retreating so you can use him again.
Do or do not. There is no try.
Unique, do or do not. Anytime an ally with that new little buff dies, Yoda will gain 100% turn meter. If you Zeta it, he will also reset his cooldowns. Now, if it is Zeta, what will happen is he's immediately giving that buff to someone else. So the second the buff is gone, it's going on someone else. If you happen to lose that toon due to AoE, he will automatically be able to heal everyone up the other AoE damage. So some debuffs to look out for if you're fighting this, some debuffs to look into are just basically AoE debuffs that are going to prevent him from healing, prevent him from getting that turn meter, prevent him from doing that thing. Like I said, you may not be able to damage him, but you can debuff him. So I started thinking about, okay, so do you want to kill the enemies? If you're fighting him, do you want to kill the enemies with the buff or without the buff first? If you're killing the enemies with the buff, you're triggering this unique, but they're also going to be the ones doing the really heavy damage. So I think that it might, in the end of the day, be worth it to kill the enemies with the buff. But something else to consider, though, is that buff is also giving them a ton of defense, so they're going to be very difficult to kill. So it might actually, depending on the team, be better off killing the other toons because they're just so much squishier and they're not going to trigger the buff being immediately passed on to someone else. Some quick thoughts on how to mod him. I would definitely go for speed to get him going as fast as you can, to get him healing everyone, getting that buff up on as many toons as he can, and some tenacity. Like I said, he can't cleanse himself, so you don't want him suffering debuffs. You want him to using all of his abilities. For primaries, definitely a speed arrow, getting him going quick. I opted for a health triangle over protection because there's a little bit more health regen going on here than protection regen, and we've just seen more success in the game overall with health regen over protection regen. And for the cross, either tenacity or protection based on what you're seeing. Secondary, speed, 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 and just any other defensive stats that you can find. And just a little reminder to not waste any of your good crit damage, offense, crit chance, bonesy. Don't waste your good mods on him. He does not do any damage. Getting into some of the teams that you're going to want to use Hermit Yoda on. So he's quite literally the definition of a support. He is buffing the team like crazy and keeping them alive. So do you even need a tank if you're going to be using him? Is he keeping them alive enough just like a tank would? On the opposite of the spectrum, would he just keep the tank alive for that much longer, making it that much more frustrating? I think it kind of depends on your playing style. We've seen this with Luke. Some people are going for a glass cannon team. Some people are loading it up with tanks and Zeras. I think we've seen success with both, so it kind of just goes off of your play style. Something to keep in mind is that you are losing that 5th spot if you're using him. So if you have a non-Jedi team, you're only getting 25% of the stats back per toon. So if you have it on all 4, that's when you have the regeneration of the 100% of those stats. So he's kind of like a Xeris where he's not doing any damage, but he's buffing everyone up. But at least he's calling in the additional assists. But that's just something to think about, that you're sacrificing that 5th spot. So thinking of kind of a little bit of a hybrid team, we have a Luke team because Luke is the thing right now. And I think the ideal team is going to be R2, Ezra, Hermit, Yoda, and Kenobi. What's going to be happening here is R2-D2 is going to keep Yoda stealthed. So he's going to be protecting him. Kenobi is going to be protecting him. Ezra is going to be wrecking face. He's getting all of the Jedi bonuses plus the Rebel bonuses from Luke. He is getting Retribution from Kenobi to be doing his basic all the time. Ezra, R2-D2, and Luke will already be doing countering all of the time. Kenobi will be just giving them more countering. This is just an insane team, and Kenobi will be keeping Hermit Yoda and everyone else cleansed. So I think this team is going to be a killer team. Looking into a Zeta Qui-Gon team, you have a little bit more flexibility with that last toon because you can throw in other Jedi to get the bonuses from Zeta Qui-Gon. If you're looking into a countering lead, if you're fighting it, AoE Days is going to be probably quite useful. You do not want Hermit Yoda to be countering. It's going to be kind of like a Rexley plus Xeris, where as Yoda's countering, he's feeding people turn meter and he's feeding them health. And this is just a little peek at the fastest toons in the game. So you can see with a speed of, I think his speed is around 160. So he is one of the faster toons in the game. And then under a Zeta Qui-Gon, he's even faster. So he's going right away. And let's wrap up with some uses for this great toon and these teams that we just talked about. So of course, I do a lot of videos on Galactic War, so of course that's the first thing I think about. I think he's going to be amazing for Galactic War. I always talk about survivability, and we know that survivability will be very important in territory battles, so he is going to be a very, very good toon for this, and Galactic War will inadvertently help you for territory battles since it's giving you those resources to bump up all of these toons to bump up your galactic power. I do think this is going to have a good impact on Jedi in Arena. They have kind of a hard time standing, and I talked about how the lack of offense was really their downfall, and we saw some bumps with R2-D2 and with Ezra and with the Zeta Qui-Gon, but I think this is the one that's really going to give them the buff that they need. I don't see this having a huge impact on the raids. I think it will definitely help, but we've just had such a big impact lately with Thrawn and Commander Luke in the raids. I don't think that that's really his shining moment. I think his really strong use is going to be Arena, Galactic War, territory battles, especially territory battles. I just have a sneaky feeling he's going to be a real MVP. And that wraps it up. Let me know what you all think about Hermit Yoda in the comments. Big shout out to Dahlia Bumcover, my fellow officer, for giving me some footage of his awesome Jedi. And I'm very excited for the next video. I'm very excited for territory battles. There's a lot coming, so I will talk to you guys soon.
R2, let him have it.